Good morning, everyone. So it's a pleasure to be here. I think I haven't taught officially a class in my time for the past 4 years.
Right.
It's been a while. It's been a while. And so it's a pleasure to be back. I'm not gonna lie, I did not miss the traffic. From Gush Etzion, like I'm there right now. But pleasure to be here. It's freezing, but everyone here likes air conditioning.
No.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. Okay, I'm Yosefa, and I've been part of Exxon for the past. I think 16 years. Yes, 16 years. He's 13, yeah, 16 years. And in different capacities, I was a student here initially in a program that doesn't exist anymore. And I was part of different projects we did here. I taught here for many years. The past now on its almost 5th year, I host the podcast for my time, which this year has moved into the Haftorah, which is a really challenging but nice change for me. What?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it was time for a shift after going through 4 cycles of Parsha. So it's definitely it's more effort and it's more of a stretch to make it relevant, but please God, we'll do it. I feel like it's I'm in a Vayikra challenge, but like the whole year long. Taking the rough, but Vayikra, they always end up being my favorite episode. So like I'm okay, it's gonna be fine. So we get through 3 of Yisrael right now, and then we can like read a little bit and take from left. So in any event, it's gonna be an interesting year. And I'm here.
Yes,
and
Yosefa, sorry to disturb. Can you speak into the microphone? Because on Zoom, I can't hear you.
Hold on. Actually. No, it is on. Oh,
Oh, okay, just put it closer to you. Now I can't hear you.
right. Okay. But now you can.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So hopefully that's better. So in addition to being here, I just
Just
raised
stand,
it.
yeah, no, it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a
It-
difference.
You
Has to
just,
be there.
yeah,
Okay, it's about
like stand not in front of it.
not in front of it. Okay. This is always a challenge. I'm a mover. I don't stand in one side, but okay. When I teach. I'm here and I am also, oh my goodness, hello. I'm also a Ramit in the Women's State Midrash in Migdal Oz, which is like a Rebbe. I'm a Rebbe. I teach Torah. It's just a word that we made up. And here we go. Yeah. I'm gonna just put the sheets here and then whoever comes, just pass them along. And I also teach in Herzog, which is a teacher's college. Some people know the NAU in the summer, so I teach there. And that's about it. And then we have 5 kids. Thank God. It's a busy life. Okay. So I don't go to halakha. It's a very important part of my life. I answer a lot of questions, Anita, and other things, etc. Couples, college. Okay. So what are we going to be doing here this year? I am not sure that everybody knows how this class is defined, so we're gonna put that out here and see what we do with it. But this class is defined as a combination of sort of frontal learning and charuta time. Okay, who here knows that before walking to the classroom?
We did it last year.
We did it last year. Okay, I don't know how many of you were here.
But they didn't advertise it as that for this year.
It actually says it in the title. It
Yeah.
says it in the title on it was there. It's right there in the advertisement. So what does that mean? Let me just clarify. And again, I'm like, we'll do our thing and we'll see how it goes. I mostly teach in my life with Karuta learning. That's mostly how I teach, and it's the only way that we really get we work on our skills a little bit. We sort of gain our own footing in what we're doing. I'm a massive fan. So let me explain bigadol how I envision this going. We're going to start every class. We're going to learn right now for I would say about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to be giving you something that it's a few pages. It's too much, honestly, but it's a few pages that you'll learn the chavruta, and I'm gonna give you a guided question. And then we're gonna continue our class after that. Now, the rest of the class is not going to be to then feed back to you what you got from that. Meaning, hopefully you got something from that. We're gonna pull out a few things from it, but we're gonna move on in the next part. Meaning it's what we call koma bits. Like we're gonna read something, and then we're gonna then go and hopefully give a different interpretation alongside what you read in that excerpt that I'm going to give you. Okay, I recognize that we need things that are going to be translated. That's all. It's actually an only English text today that I've brought, and I'm going to experiment with it because this is new and I'm doing something new this year. Okay, so that's the structure of the class. It's a class. There's about 15, I would say 15 minutes of chavruta time, and then there's going to be the continuation, and we'll play around with it. So don't be too reactive based on today. We're going to give it a go, okay? But I would say stick around, please, God, if it works for you, and we'll keep going. So there, are there not enough? It's okay. So there's more here. So that's the structure. Now let's get to the content. Okay. The truth is that I also really want to just go around and ask everyone's name, and we're not going to do it right now because it's already a bit late. But we will do it. Okay. Like it's really important to me. I don't want to go through the whole year and not know everyone's name. Like it's totally. It's just not right. We're gonna see Pinocchio. So we're gonna do that at some point so that we all know each other. And I would say every class, it's good to have your karuta. Again, it's not gonna be for 40 minutes, it's gonna be something shorter. But it's good to have like your set partner so that not every week you're sort of rethinking, who am I gonna sit with right now? Okay. So that being said, this year's class, I actually don't have my own sheet. Okay. This year's class topic is going to be about relationship dynamics in narrative and law in Tanakh. Okay. Now, I'll just first say what I'm not going to be doing. We're not going to be doing parent-child because there are other classes here that are focusing on Yaakov and his sons, and it's just a little bit too overdone. What I want to do is kind of the ones that get less attention. We're going to spend, I would say, definitely 4 or 5 classes on couple dynamics. On Zoom, they don't seem to be that. So we're gonna spend a few classes on couple dynamics, and then we're gonna talk about in-law relationships. We're gonna talk about friendships. We're gonna kind of do the ones that get like less press. Okay, that's the plan. I'm gonna mostly avoid the parent-child, even though it's obviously the favorite. But I want to leave space for that and not have too much overlap with other courses. And we're also going to be looking at narrative and legal sources, okay? That legal sources when they're relevant, meaning chok in Tanakh, we're going to look at that as well. Now, before we jump into our first topic of the intimate relationships, meaning couple dynamics, I want to start with, I really can never jump into the book of Bereshit without doing this. So if you've heard it before from me, then it's okay. Chazara is always good. But I just want to establish 2 main points that to me are critical before ever starting to learn Torah. Okay. So point number 1 is the idea about the way the book is divided up. Okay. Sefer Bereshit is divided into 2 major sections. Okay. We have Prakim Aleph ad Yud Aleph. Okay. And we have from Yud Bet through Nun. I'm sorry, I did that in 2 languages of the opposite way. Okay, 12 through 50. Okay, Yud Bet through Nun, where the first 11 chapters of Bereshit are speaking about universal struggles of mankind. It's not about the Jews, right? We're not Jews yet. We're not going to be Jews for a long time, okay? But it's not about the Abrahamic family. We don't get there. The first 11 chapters are about general universal struggles that we experience in life, whether it's what's the boundary between the heavens and the earth, or it's how much am I supposed to care about myself versus all of humanity, i.e. Noah, right? Or how do we deal with technological advancement and trying to make really closed communities? The story of Bavel, okay, meaning of the Tower of Babel. And so we have all these stories. Interspersed in them are genealogies, which we think are very boring, but actually hold keys to unbelievable traditions about the different families and the origins of the earth. And those are the first 11 chapters, and they really basically come to say, let's see what are the basic struggles of mankind. And then, right, enter left stage the family of Abraham, who is going to be the first family that's charged with correcting or showing the world a new moral way. Meaning, if we let if we let the world act on its own, this is what happens, chapters 1 through 11. And then we meet the family of Abraham. Now, the funny part is, it's not funny, the genius of the Torah is that it doesn't say, and now let's meet the perfect Brady Bunch, right? That is not what happens. There is nothing perfect about these families. They're revelatory, they're part of a covenant, they realize that everything they do seems to have significance for the rest of eternity, but there's nothing perfect about them, and they have the same human pitfalls that we know from our family lives, yet they're playing on this covenantal stage that is going to set the tone for the rest of the world. And so that is the beginning of Abraham and onward. Now, I brought it for you in the words of the amazing Professor Leon Pass, which I starts at source 2, but really it's supposed to be source 1. Yeah, it's okay. It's just a typo. We're good. The educational lessons, Leon Cass, if we're not familiar, is an amazing, amazing professor. He's retired and lives in Makor Chaim right here, and is the president of Shalom College. But he was a professor of microbiology in the University of Chicago for many, many years, but him and his late wife did much more than that. He taught also courses in Western literature and seeing that the humanities were really waning and that the idea of becoming a virtuous person was not really in the conversation anymore. He basically developed these courses, and he started it by studying Bible with his students. And after 20 years of learning the book of Bereshit, he wrote this commentary. And then many, many years after that, it came out in Corona, wrote his commentary on Shmot. And that's it. He told me he's not continuing. But that's a loss for humanity because they're amazing. And he wrote many books with his late wife, Amy. And anyways, he's retired and he has one child who lives here, I think at least, and he now lives in Yerushalayim.
How old is he now?
I recorded a podcast with him a few months ago. Yeah, he's close. He's probably late 80s. Amazing. Really, I don't know. He's kind of like a rebbe to me, but we've only met once. And anyways, I hang out with him a lot with his commentaries. People who I read all the time, right? I mean, people tell me that about podcasting, but like people who I read all the time, right? They're my friends. Okay. The educational lessons of the beginning are supplemented by the rest of the book. Okay, that's the 1 through 11 verses up until the end of the book. After the first 11 chapters expose some of the enduring psychic and social obstacles to decent and righteous living, the rest of Genesis presents beginning efforts to overcome these obstacles in the lives of the Israelite founders, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and their families. These national beginnings are fraught with difficulties and success is hard to come by. Yet remarkably, a new human way of acting and standing in the world is established and transmitted for several generations through the education of the patriarchs, an education which we readers may vicariously and reflectively participate. Okay, meaning we learn how to be better people, right, through learning about the stories of the Avot and Imahot. Now, that's one important piece that I want to establish here before we jump into our first concept that will touch upon Bereshit, but we're going to go far beyond Bereshit in the future. Okay, we're going to jump around through all the different books of Tanakh. But one other piece that, again, apologize if it's a repetition, that is very important for me to bring up is this question about why begin the Torah with family. We're now beginning the book of Bereshit, so it's a good virtual, else you could say your Shabbat table. Why begin the Torah with family? I'll just read the first piece right here by Sachs' introduction to his commentary on Genesis. Not by accident is Genesis a book about the family. The family is where we learn emotional and spiritual intelligence. There is nothing simple or idealized about the families of Abraham and Sarah. Only much later in Tanakh do we discover that the family will turn out to contain the most compelling metaphors for the relationship between human beings and God himself. He is our father, we are his children, he is our husband, we are his betrothed. The tensions within the patriarchal family are symptomatic of Israel's later, larger battles with God, with humanity, and with itself. Now I want to just unpack this he has more to say here, but we'll leave it for now. Two pieces that are important for me in this piece by Rabbi Sachs, and I skipped in the middle, you could read more in the introduction. Piece number 1 is that the Torah is essentially written in a way that mimics the way we develop in the world. Meaning we first exist in a family, we first meet our family, and our foundations of who we are imprinted in us. And then we develop a relationship with God. Okay, so the book of Bereshit starts with we're created, right? We're created, we have a family, we try and figure out who we are, what are we supposed to do here? And then we have this relationship with God. Of course, we have another element here, which is that it's personal, Breshit, and then Shmo moves into the national stage. But again, first it's about family, and then we have the more, strict laws and mitzvot that are going to come later. We don't have those pieces in the book of Breshit, says Rabbi Sachs, because that's not the way that we function in the world. We first exist within our family. The second piece he has is this piece about metaphor. This piece about the fact that we need these fundamental stories about family so that then we'll understand the ways that we can try and understand what God is in this world, right? We use these metaphors as ways to try and grasp what it is to have a relationship with God. Well, I know what it means to have a relationship with a sibling or a parent or a spouse, maybe, right? We know what that looks like with its pros and cons. And then we can maybe use that as a blueprint for how we relate to God. Okay, so that's an idea that really I've only seen Rabbi Sachs offer. I looked high and low for other explanations for why begin the Torah with the family. We're familiar usually with the opposite question that the Rashi that everyone brings that quotes Rabbi Yitzchak from the first pasuk of the Torah, which is why begin with Bereshit bara olam and not with the stories of mitzvot. So they're asking about specifically about the land of Israel, but the question about family I think is critical, and I think Rabbi Sachs's point is really salient. Okay, so with that in mind, I want us to move into our official topic for today. Now, what I want us to do, okay, and this is a little intro into the way that I like learning and teaching. So we don't have a ton of things, right? We have a ton of things. We'll bring them. There's a whole bunch there. Let's pull them off. Yeah, let's pull them off the shelf.
Phones.
Yeah, you can take out your phones. I trust you not to text in class. You can take out your phone and then just know for the future, just bring it to now, okay?
Where are you starting?
We are starting from the very beginning, Farragali. Okay? Okay. Yeah, of course. One sec, we have a question by, what on your name?
So when we start with the Upton, it's not really a family yet. I mean, he's created
Yeah.
and his wife.
Yeah.
And then as he has a relationship with God, God's telling him what his mission is in regard
Yeah.
to God Eden. So there's really not, then later on, it's a family, but we don't really know much about how they relate to Cain, especially after he kills Hevel. It's a very, very tragic story in my opinion. Just also Hevel has a terrible name.
Okay, well, we're not gonna get into that story today.
Nobody has. Nobody's giving me a good answer, but in terms of Upton, he's not really a family, he's single.
Yeah.
And he becomes,
Yeah, we're gonna flush that out right now.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna get that right now. Thank you so much for bringing it forward. Okay, so yeah, and if not, use your phone, and then in the future, we'll all know to bring it to Tanakh. It's always better to see it inside. Also, our brains are much more likely to remember things we see in Tanakh when we see it in a book. I think I'm still gonna claim that. I still don't believe that even a generation that never sees books, it's very hard when you don't have spatial orientation, right? When you just flip through, I mean, I do a lot of reading on my computer, but I dislike it greatly. It's easier to do that than going to a library sometimes. But anyways, it's always good to have the book because then we have a sense of where it is. We remember, oh, it was on that side of the page, it was on that side, and it gives us sort of an orientation. So what I want to do is look at, okay, we're going to sort of open up our unit on couple dynamics. Okay, now again, we already know that the Torah is not going to give us some sort of idealized version of what that looks like. Already in Perek Gimel, it all goes downhill, right? So we're very quickly going to see where the pitfalls are. But what I want to do is kind of whatever unit we have, I want to mine our stories for the ideas, for the messages that we're trying to be told through very complex stories, and also how to pull out, and that's what we're going to see in our Chavruta today, how to pull out a message. We're going to have to be really careful. I'm going to be very open about my biases. In your Chavruta time, you're going to see negative images, let's say, of women in a relationship with men vis-a-vis the biases of the Middle Ages. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the idea of the biases, but what I want to do is I always want to look at the text and then sort of look at them in sort of put them up against each other. Okay, so we're not going to learn all of the story of the creation. That's not our topic for today. We're going to look at the way that we meet Adam, and she's not yet Chava, but Adam and the woman. And so for that, we have to skip to day 6. Okay, so we're in Perek Aleph, and we are in Pasuk Kaf Vav. Okay, verse 26. Famously, man is created on the same day as what other species? All the animals, right? All the animals that were created on the same day. It's also very clearly coming to tell us that on one hand, we're the last creation, meaning we're the pinnacle, but we share a lot with the physical world, right? Meaning that's the Midrash in many ways brings and says, Adam gets angry at Hashem, like, why didn't you give me my own day? And they said, well, you don't deserve your own day. Meaning we have so much in common with the animal world, although we're supposed to be the pinnacle of it. Okay. So we have the creation of that animal world. And in the end of Pasuk Kaf Hey, Vayar Elohim Ki Tov. And Hashem sees that everything, it's not good, never translate Kitov as good, but everything was in its place. This is not a moral judgment in the creation of the world. It means that everything was put in its proper place. Vayomer Elohim, Naaseh Adam betzalmenu kidmutenu, vayildu b'degat hayam, uve'of hashamayim, uve'ma, uve'chol haaretz, uve'chol haremes haromes al haaretz. So Hashem says, right, this is, again, there's so many, every pasuk you ever touch upon in Torah, you have a million concentric circles. We could talk about, why did it speak about Naaseh Adam in plural? Is God hanging out with friends, right? Or right, we could talk about why is God now thinking to himself? But we're going straight to the question about how the couple comes into the world. That's our prism for our conversation right now. So we're ignoring all those other pieces. And so God says, let us make mankind. Now I'm translating it Adam as mankind because we're going to see in your Chavruta time that the commentators of the Middle Ages who had a negative bent towards women and the female species are going to look at the word Adam and say that it means man. And so every time it says Adam, they're going to say, well, it just meant man. And so woman is always going to be an afterthought, okay? But that's a very important point. And I think they're wrong. But I am being open and saying, I know that I have my modern bias, which is that I could never imagine that God would look at the world and say, let me make men, right? So I'm aware that that is my bias, although I happen to think that I'm right, okay? Yeah.
Textually, you are right.
Tell everyone your name.
Am I? Textually, you are right because afterwards, there's I don't remember the psukim exactly, but it does say that man and woman were already one, and then he kind of pulled them apart.
Yes.
So the mechanism was through the rib, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they weren't equally.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll hopefully get to that too.
But basically, I agree with you. I'm just
I
saying-
still think I'm right, but I think I'm right even from this pasuk. Hold on 1 second. No, I also think that it was a deviation from what clearly is the pshat. I think that we'll B'ezras Hashem, you'll see it there. Okay.
You actually translated mankind.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
me and Oren are one. I mean, we're part of the same genre of humans. You know, my friend did that translation. Okay. Yes.
I don't like the English translate let us, which is plural,
Yeah.
because Elohim is really El is power.
Yeah.
I read this, last
Yeah.
week. El is power, so Elohim with all power.
Yes.
Hashem, who is one, created.
So Kasuto, let's say, translates it like that. There's many ways to translate. He says, let it be, meaning it's like a lashon of as he would say, power. I agree with you, right? But again, that being the case, philosophers still have spent a few millennia hanging out on that pasuk, okay? So
Royally,
what?
royally.
Yeah, the royal we, exactly. Well, that's how most of them understand it, okay? So what do we have here? Vayivra Elohim. Sorry, I want to go back for a second. I want to make mankind. What is going to be the mission? That they will rule over, right? They will look at the words. Meaning they haven't said an Elohim. They're going to have an element of God in them. We'll get back to that. It's going to be very important to us later. Hold on, my mind is skipping and from speaking. Sorry, I skipped one pasuk ahead. So our job is going to be B'tzamenu kidmutenu v'yirdu b'degat hayam u'va'of hashamayim. Redu is a very strong word of power. It gets used later for Paro and Am Yisrael. It gets used for the isur of lo lirdot on your slaves. So it's a very, not to sort of abuse your power. It's a very strong word here. And we'll have to see how that word unfolds to understand how it's supposed to be, but it's definitely not supposed to be a negative mission right now. I mean, they're given their initial mission and basically to be the top of the hierarchy, right? You guys are in charge here. What does that mean? Does that mean to preserve or to use them? Is an important question that the Sefer Bereshit will deal with, okay? ויברא אלוהים את האדם בצלמו, בצלם אלוקים ברא אותו, זכר ונקבה ברא אותם. Okay, now again, I think that it's pshat because of that pasuk, right? Meaning God makes mankind and then lets us know that there's a male and female. Now, what's interesting here is that God has made animals until now, but it doesn't use that phrase. It only uses it by mankind. Hold on 1 second. It only uses that phrase by mankind. By zachar u'nekeva bara otam. And so we're told here that they have one mission, meaning the same mission. We're going to see because Perek Bet will totally separate them from each other. But they have the same mission, which is that mankind, man and woman, are, in terms of their essence, they're both made in the image of God. And their role is to be in charge, right? To be of the higher beings in this world. And then, ויברך אותם אלוהים, ויאמר להם אלוהים, פרו ורבו ומלאו את הארץ, וכיבשוה, ורדו בדגת הים ובעוף השמיים, ובכל חיית הרומצת על הארץ. Okay? So, and we're going to leave this piece here, but the last piece says, Hashem gives a bracha. Okay? ויברך אותם. But the bracha has in it a tzivui, right? So a lot of the commentators wonder about this, meaning what's the bracha and what is the requirement? Okay, did I bring it here? No, I didn't bring it here, it's fine. What is the bracha and what is the requirement? And so I personally like to look at this, especially in light of the way the world looks now, yeah, okay, so for example, the Ramban says that the whole thing is just a blessing, meaning you should be blessed to be fruitful, okay? But I think that in the world today that really highly values autonomy, I think that it's important to say this is a blessing that is also a commandment, meaning see the blessing in the commandment. Much of the world has, for a whole host of reasons, sort of pushed away this commandment to a certain degree, or pushed off, or sometimes obviously it's pushed off against our will of moving into that stage of life where we are populating the world. But the idea is to see ourselves as that is a responsibility, but also that it's a blessing, right? Not on every day do we always remember the blessing part, right? But actually this morning everybody left the house really with a smile, and I was like, what a blessing. Okay, not always every morning. So but seeing the blessing in the commandment of it, I think that both elements are very significant here. And that is the piece. What's interesting is that again, both man and woman are given that commandment. Okay, now again, where their missions are going to split, and we'll talk about why their missions are going to split. But as a mahut, as an essence of mankind, the pinnacle of creation, and that your job is to also keep the world going, both of you. That will divide up on a practical level of who physically does each part of that, but it's a mission that is shared by both. So if I would leave this source, okay, if I would leave Perek Aleph, I would say that man and woman, right, Zachar and Nekeva, not really man and woman, male and female are equal partners. They're equal partners. This is not a new age feminist reading, okay? Meaning, I don't think. They're equal partners, they have the same mission, and they're created in the same day, and they are both created in the image of God. And that's a piece that I want to take with us as we jump into our chavruta. I saw that there was a comment. Is there still a comment? No? Okay. So that's our first piece. Now I am going to hand out, it looks intimidating. I just want to give the background to it, okay? Really, if you like academic books that are readable for the general public, I recommend this one. Okay, it's a book by, it doesn't say on here because I sent in the PDF and I couldn't write on it, but it's called Pious and Rebellious. It's a translation from Chasidot v'Mordot. It's a book by Professor Avram Grossman, Zichrono Livracha, the father of William Grossman, if anybody likes his Torah. Professor Avram Grossman, who was like the foremost scholar of medieval jewelry, I would say in the world, okay? He passed away not so long ago, less than 5 years ago. And this is a book that was also translated, and it's about women in medieval Europe, okay? And it's an amazing book. It's written very clearly. The translation is excellent. And it's called Pious and Rebellious, okay?
Are there more of those? Or did we?
No, I'll put, yeah, there's more. Okay, so this is a short excerpt from the book. The first chapter of the book, it goes through many things. What did marriage look like in the Middle Ages? What did aginut, women who were agunot, what did that look like in the Middle Ages? All different questions surrounding the lives of women. The other big scholar, I'll just say for the sake of, is Elisheva Baumgarten. Maybe some of you know her. She's another, what?
Grew up with her.
Okay.
in Hamilton.
So she's another like big scholar in terms of women in the medieval world. This is one book. Avram Gross was actually known. He was the biggest Rashi scholar. That was like his main tome, and like other Parshanim from France. But he also and went on beyond that. And this is an excellent book. It's very, very interesting. And so why did I bring this for you? Let's make sure it's okay. So second. Okay, perfect. So I brought for you this introductory piece from this first chapter. Now, what I want you to read together is on page 10, it says the creation and the superiority of man. Now, he's an academic. He doesn't think that. He's bringing you what the commentators with a general impression. And I'm giving you that bias before we go into Perek Bet and suggest something very different. Better? But I want you to see that. I want you to get a window into the way that looks. I just want to see something together because it's not directly related to our point, but I found it really, really a great frame when I was preparing this. Women are a nation unto themselves is more than, I'm starting from the beginning. It's more than simply a clever turn of phrase. Many men in medieval Jewish, Christian, or Muslim society saw women as a different creature, inferior to themselves, and having different character traits. This perspective found backing from Holy Scripture, which enjoyed great weight, meaning Christian scripture, okay, which enjoyed great weight in the Middle Ages, from philosophy and even from medical descriptions. This perception was an integral part of the overall view of the medieval world, which denied equality among human beings. Some people are of superior pedigree and of higher status and deserve some special privileges. Okay, and that exists also in the feudal system. Skipping a sentence, this worldview was shared by sages and thinkers and hence greatly influenced the status of women in the Middle Ages, including Jewish women. He writes, I'm reading one more paragraph because it's fascinating, okay? As noted in introduction, the status of Jewish women within society and family and the attitude towards them was determined by three main factors. This is just interesting for life. This is not important for our class, but I wanted to let's see it. The biblical and Talmudic heritage, meaning what's written about them. The attitude towards women in the neighboring Christian and Muslim societies, which they lived and acted. And the role of the woman in supporting the family in running households, okay? Household affairs. Now, he said, while the first two factors were often detrimental, the third was to her benefit, okay? And what he continues to write, but you could skip this for now and just get to where I said in the next little subheading, is that women who were supporters, maid workers, breadwinners in their home, it always deeply impacted their status within the family. Meaning, how could I think X about her if she runs the family business, right? Men used to go off. He writes about this a lot. Men used to go off for business for months at a time. That's where you have most of your sugiyot of aguna are from that. Of a man went off for business and never came home, right? Those are the men you have those sugiyot in the Gemara, but they're much more practical in the medieval times, okay? And so women were often charged with running the entire household and whatever the business was, whether it was money lending or jewelry, right, or whatever their business, or spices, whatever their business was. And that always in places where men tended to travel and women tended to run the meshek bayit, those places we always saw much greater, I would say, rights or even equality also in the halachic literature for women in those places. Okay, it's a fascinating piece, and obviously it has modern iterations today. What he writes also is that how women are written about in texts is probably the least important. As the least important factor, and I would say the same thing today. Meaning, are we going and looking? No, we're often going into text to sort of read back what we kind of already think. What society is giving us, right? The perceptions that have been in our family for X amount of time. And so he writes that the written pieces are usually less important in terms of the way that they form perceptions about women, but rather what you're going to read right now is to see how many of the medieval sages looked really negatively at women in chapter 2 and 3 in Bereshit because of his claim, and I agree with it, because of the perceptions of women that were common in that time. Okay, so what I just want to say is when you read this for the next 15 minutes, please still love those Parshanim. Okay, no, see the Radak in this context, right? See Relbag in this context. Rav Kook also doesn't think I could vote, but I think if Rav Kook was around today, he would think I could vote. Do you know what I'm saying? I say it seriously. See them in their context. If you read the commentaries, we're not going to do it a lot because it's Zelo Savitov Benefesh, okay? But if you read the commentaries about the creation of woman in chapter 2, it's very clear that 80% of them are really negative, okay? Which is why I don't like to spend a lot of time in them. I want to look more at the psukim, and we're going to see my modern friends, 1800 and on, who see things a little bit differently, okay? But it's important, but let's see them in their context because it's understandable, and the book still stands while, yeah, they have a different perception of half of society, which thankfully most of us have shaken for the most part today. Okay, so I want you to turn to the person next to you for now. Let's not get complicated. And just read page 10, okay, to the middle of 13. Just this one subheading, the creation and superior advance. There are times where I will give you Hebrew text. Today I chose to do this, okay? And what I want you to take is to understand what they are reading differently in the text, okay? Meaning you have one assumption, you'll see no because you're going to read their commentary and be like, I don't think that means that. What are they reading differently in the text than the way you're used to? Okay?
Is this on the source sheet?
No, it's the second package.
Pardon? No, but if we're on Zoom, where do you get it?
Calvin sent it.
Enjoyed by the man. Gives authority to the woman according to the biblical narrative of the creation. So he was created first, his body from one birth, and so by God. Not only was the woman created in the image of man, gave it from man rib, so there's a principle thing. Despite that, we're there to qualify as God, but it's selected a different process or they damage about the that is when and she is the kind of vessel or tool to the delivery. The idea is here my phone every month pays I should bring several examples. Amplify the idea. Except it's not available. They shall be what God is. She should always be with him. Instead of it, he loved his wife by his own heart, honor her, and have compassion in her. And forget her as you get as one of his love. She is going to be required to make and honor yeah, I'm telling you, like He's not related to that, he's related to the one in the grid. So they're ignoring that. This is what it is. They're trying to understand it, learn it from tech themselves. How can you understand it? And then that's like what is kind of generalization and then let's go into the details. It's interesting that apparently all of these rabbis put a lot of emphasis on that. Basic idea, combination, although for business on those, that elevated state to a state actor led to a situation in which still had right. Like, allowing him to do what is left and divided for this purpose. Understand the
Class, and then 2 weeks something. They sound like it's well, pretty clear how we do it. How are you meant to do that?
or Sahara, I then go down to but terminology is
You don't think of that. There's loads of people on Zoom. How have they got it? You listening to me?
Because she is more dignified and has the ability to attain higher spiritual giving than all the women serves him as a tool. So this idea is expressed like the eyes of the servant one. She went off her I would think not. These things are like about the creation in China. Horses of nature and the animals who are conserving the animal and their peoples then. One of the kills about creation of women from humanity so that women would be subject to her, subjugated. Okay. Rabbi, I've been asking she likes to be at the end, like 13. Okay, the idea that what it would see. Okay, so this idea of servants, they somehow accelerated. Wow, the servants are usually right? It's like the tool alone. It's not like I'm sitting here, you're like, he was susceptible. He was susceptible to being persuaded. He's like, oh, the people. It's no more than something, oh, she was bad, something secondary to the organization. Men were according to the state, women are they are like a phone, unless of anything. Supposed to the man, that's interesting. Soil, which is softer and less rich. But our spirits were also saw blessing in the creation of woman from man's making, emphasize not only her inferiority and dependence, but also the deep relation between them, because in their root they are one body. Because it's funny, on one hand, but on the other hand, they have this deep connection. Right. I like some kind of connection, because otherwise, if she's work be together, it's very important. And you're saying, it was either intellect, it's very. As a consequence, and they shall be punished. God is one. Then she shall be very precious.
We're gonna take another 3 minutes and I will manage to finish something, okay? 3 minutes.
Much more, I'm subjugated to the men.
And I just asked, if you're on Zoom, how do you get this text? If you're on Zoom, how do you get this text? If you're on Zoom, how do you get this text? How do you get the text if you're on Zoom?
He sees it as a kind of equal ground that she was created by his she goes against my right? But he also has to know what that man was created, they still thought of it in Christ. To indicate that male and female are not equally made with God, but man alone. And God was not created in the God, meaning that she's intellectually experienced. And say that. I know, but it says, that done with salvation, they're both. Yeah. Similar interpretation, anything about the word that other been able to use. That's why knowledge is not even why we was concentrated for people. So equality between men and women and conflict that you have in wow. So the writing system, the Spanish language, this woman has equality and the
Okay, everybody finish your sentence, time, everybody decide, and let's continue so we can manage something before that, okay?
I don't have video on my friend to see I understand it.
Okay, okay, let's come back, okay? Okay, so first of all, I was trying to say, I'm also saying for the Zoom, that I recognize that while it was made very clear to me, it seems to not have been made fully clear to everybody that this also had a Chavruta component. For now, that is the case. For those on Zoom, if there's a concern or somehow learning for 15 minutes on Zoom is somehow feels very different than what we're doing here, I get that, and you can contact us and let us know, not right now on loudspeaker. You can let us know and contact us, but for now, this is going to be the Matkon. Usually this second piece of the class will be longer because there won't be the 15-minute introduction in the beginning. Okay, so right now, usually it'll be a half hour of learning. I can't pay attention more than a half hour at a time, so I figured that's like a good amount. Okay, so so basically, I preface you to still love them after you read. Okay, it was an important preface. I know it's rough. It's rough. Okay, now the reason why I wanted to preface with that, and we're not going to go into it too much right now because we're going to see what their I'm so sorry for coming here. Okay, to see what their biases were, because we're going to present something very different. Okay, so we're going to see things very differently, but I think it gives context to how we're reading it. So you don't say, oh, okay, like Yosefa said that, so that sounds good. No, meaning I'm going against a lot of traditions here. But I think that that's okay. And I also think that, like many things about the world, is that there's a reclaiming of what I think is an ethic. I'll say this. I'm going to go off on a tangent. It's a really important one. Okay. There's an idea by Rabbi Eliezer Berkovitz, who's one of my Jewish theology rebbes, who he basically in his last book, which he clearly waited to do until his last book, he wrote about women in halacha, and he published, I think it was the year before he passed away. And he writes about this idea about Torah taught versus Wait, hold on, now I'm blanking on the phrase, hold on. Torah taught versus Torah tolerated ideas. Meaning that the Torah, I think at its root, has a lot of ideas that jive very strongly with the way that the world is going in terms of seeing all humans as humans, right? But the Torah also tolerates the world as it was, meaning it's given the deal. We have slavery, we're given to a world, we have Eshet Yefat Toal, we have all these halachot in the Torah that also say, but we recognize this Torah is being given to an actual world, and we have to deal with the world as it is. And so he separates, and it's a much more complex topic to talk about than halacha, when these ideas make their way into halacha, okay? But the idea that there's Torah taught and Torah tolerated. So he would look at, let's say, a lot of these commentaries and say, it's Torah tolerated, but it's not Torah taught, okay? So I think he would agree that but he was an avant-garde modern thinker. Okay, let's jump in. Let's jump into Pasuk Tedvav. I know I just don't have time, okay? Pasuk Tedvav, in second chapter, Perek Bet Pasuk Tedvav. ויקח אדוני אלוהים את האדם, ויניחהו בגן עדן לעובדה ולשומרה. God places, and here it is man, okay? God places man in Gan Eden. It's a beautiful word by Yinichehu. Perek Bet, yeah, exactly. It's Bet 15, Teshvav, okay? That he places, it's mamash like something very gentle, right? It's like putting a baby down on the floor, you know?
Which chapter?
2. We're in chapter 2. Pasuk now Ted Zayin, okay, 16. And so God places him, and it says le'ovda u'leshomra. Now le'ovda u'leshomra, to till and to guard, it's not clear that that's the same thing as the mission that they got together in Perek Aleph. The mission in Perek Aleph was to be the higher beings and to multiply. Now, why does it make sense that he gets a different job here? Because he can't multiply alone. Okay, he can't multiply alone. So this, it seems to be, is where Adam gets his first, I would say, person-specific job. And we're going to see that this will be the fodder for the klala, for the curse he's going to get later. But his job, it seems, not hers per se, is to le'ovda l'shama. We're going to leave it as it is. I'm not going to overly translate it right now, okay? But to somehow work and preserve the world around them. ויצב אדוני אלוהים על האדם לאמור, מכל עץ הגן לכל תאכל, okay? You can eat anything. We're going to leave the food out for now. We'll get to it next week. But you can eat from the עץ הדת. I'm skipping to Yudchet. ויאמר אדוני 18. ויאמר אדוני אלוהים, לא טוב היות האדם לבדו, אעשה לו עזר כנגדו. Now, based on how I explained the word lo tov in the previous pasuk, what does it mean? He's not in his right place yet. He doesn't have the right context, okay? So lo tov doesn't mean that it's bad, but then he doesn't have his full context. He's placed in the gan, but he doesn't have his broader setting. Now we have the famous words.
He's not whole.
Yeah, saying he's not whole. Okay, and then we have the famous words ezel kenegdo. Now some of us know Rashi, who brings the midrash, right? Who says, well, they're two different things. If they have the Shekhinah between them, then they're helpers, and if not, then she becomes kenegdo, which again is another negative reading of that pasuk. Okay, it's another negative reading. Now, for a different reading, I want you to turn the source sheets that you have on the page. Okay, turn them to the second side. Here, right here on the page, this is Radatz Hoffman, another one of our friends. We'll be hanging out with him all year long. I wrote where he's from. He was born in Hungary, really was a Rav in Berlin. He's like a hemshech to like the Rav Hirsch kind of school. He died in 1921. Okay, we have here Ezel and Kenegdo. And he says, what is Ezel? The second page, okay? Meaning to be someone who you can like physically depend on, okay? Meaning Ezel, meaning like almost like an aid. And he says, Kenegdo, kemo leitim krovot b'lashon chachamenu. He brings in Chazal from other places. Mat'im, holem, klomar Ezel hamat'im lo ve'shaveh lo. Okay?
Definitely the shot.
I agree with you. It's a pshat. I'm just bringing another parshan, right? This is the Radak. It's here. It starts here. We're going to look at his words in a few moments on a different pasuk. But here we have kinegdo is not kinegdo in a fight. but that they are complements to each other, right? In the way we would say today, both and both pashut. They're complements to each other. The question that the Parshanim has is why use both words? Why do you need gam ezer v'gam kenegdo? Okay, so that's what Rashi through the Midrash understands it like that. And in this case, where that's often says something else, right? Meaning literally they're there to technically help each other, but they're also there kenegdo to be complements to each other of equal being, of equal worth.
But it only, inform each other.
Yeah.
But it only talks about that with respect to the woman. Is he supposed to be an Ezer Kenegda?
Yeah, fit. So that's a great question. I think that that is going to depend on the perspective of the commentator. Meaning, to me, it's clear that that Radak often meant that. We will probably next week contend with the fact that still we have man first and then woman comes after. We're gonna leave that piece out for now because we don't have time, but we're gonna get to it next week. Okay. So let's move a little bit further.
Yes. Is the word kenegdo any other place in the sense of argumenting in the Tanakh?
In the word keneged,
Kenegid?
it's a great question.
It brings some.
Nachon, he doesn't quote it in that. I have to look up which where he's referencing. That's a good question. Come to me after and I'll look it up and we'll see it together. Yes, but that's Hashem. And we wouldn't call Hashem our equal. So it's a good question. Yes, meaning, yes, we have that in the beginning. Okay, so I want to continue on a few more psukim.
I think it says,
So then he's the first one.
with Ishmael.
Yeah, but again, they're not usually statements of worth. They're statements of, that's a physical position. That's why I have to go back and think more. Like we also have here, Maya said in Tehillim, but when we say Hashem is kenegdi, we don't mean partner. We mean that we're in conversation, but no one's claiming equality between us. So it's a more complex question. I have to sit and think about it a little bit. Okay, I just want to continue on. So we have Vayitzer Adonai Elohim min ha'adama. כל חיית השדה ואת כל עוף השמיים ויבא אל האדם לראות מה יקרא לו וכל אשר יקרא לו האדם נפש חיה הוא שמו. Now after the pasuk of Esero Ezel Kenegdo, what will we assume would happen? Make the woman, but instead we now have the retelling of the fact that God made all the animal kingdom. Okay, notice that. Again, we're ignoring the question of why do we have two different creation accounts. We are going to ask it a little bit next time. Okay, meaning but we have two different accounts, and so in this parak it's telling us that it wasn't that all the animals were there first and then God made male female, but that there was male and then there were all the animals were vayitzev, they were created. And then we have this new fact that we're told that he was supposed to give them names, okay? And once he would give them a name, poof, they would have their vitality breathed into them, okay? ויקרא האדם שמות לכל הבהמה ולעוף השמיים ולכל חיית השדה ולאדם לא מצא עזר כנגדו. And we learn at the end, after he gave all them their names, and he realized, wait, but I thought God was sort of bringing me the shidduch line. But I got to the end of the line, and nobody was looking for me. Okay, that's literally what it says, right? And the Midrash says many greater things. The Midrash goes much farther than that and says that he actually engaged sexually with all the animals, but then realized he couldn't. But it's the same way. It's saying, I'm looking to figure out who is mine. God was supposed to bring me mine. He just told me, lo tov. So where is she? Or where is it? He didn't know what it was at that point. So what I want to say here is that the animal, everything in this paragraph is being retold through the prism of man. Okay, we're not going to it now, but the way the rivers are and the food they can eat, like the whole paragraph is retold with focus completely on mankind. And what we're being told is that one element of the animals being created was solely so that man, not woman, man could then say, but who's supposed to be for me? Meaning God wanted to create an existential loneliness for man. This is not my idea. This is the Ramban. Look on your source sheet and source number 3. Okay, on your source sheet. The Ramban says, "V'hanachon be'inai ki habehima v'achaya en lahem dvekut b'nikvotehem." That animals don't have, again, maybe it's not true, but for what we know now, animals don't have an emotional closeness with their mating partners. אבל יבוא הזכר על איזה נקבה שימצא, וילכו להם, ומפני זה אמר הכתוב בעבור שנקבת האדם, שנקבת האדם הייתה עצם מעצמה ובשר מבשרו. He said, animals, what do? They want one another. Then they have, they have physical relations with each other, and that's all. It's not an emotional partnership. But in the case of mankind, that's something else. And therefore, he says, the Pasuk says that she is basar mibsari. We'll get that Pasuk next week. V'davak ba, that there is a dvikut. The Ramban here is reading dvikut is not an emotional sexual relationship, but it is an emotional relationship. והייתה בחיקו כבשרו, ויחפוץ בה להיותה תמיד עמו. וכאשר היה זה האדם, הוא שם טבעו בתולדותיו, להיות הזכרים בהם דבקים בנשותיהם. And he says, this is a מעשה אבות סימן לבנים. That we wanted the first man, so that it's imprinted, it's a blueprint in the way they function, is that they have a longing for their partner, that they have that moment where they say, something here is missing. We're going to talk about why she's not there. Okay, we're going to get there. And then they see each other as they are one flesh, and they are no longer living in their parents' homes. Okay. And he ends and he says that he sees that his wife is even closer to him than the family is. Now, there are many questions we have here, right? Why is it that this is done to man alone, right? Why is this the order of events? Now, I want to say something now, but we're going to get more to it next week. That when woman comes into the world, she comes into the world already in a relationship, which I think is very significant. Okay, now again, we have to be very careful. I like to look at Adam and Chava here as prototypical male or female energy. It's not prototypical man or woman. Okay, meaning many women can exhibit the thing I'm going to say in a moment that is prototypical Adam, and men can exhibit the prototypical what is presented as Chava. And I don't think that that's a modern iteration of it. I think that it's an important understanding of the pair. It's not saying, and therefore all men do X or all women do X, but that there is prototypical energy in the world that is zichri or nikbi, it's male or female, and humans are imbued with a different proportionality of that energy in them, okay? And so I think that what the Torah says is that there is an energy in the world, let's call it Adam, and that energy is, I'm hanging out alone for a long time and life is fine. Until one day I wake up and I say, I'm feeling lonely. Okay, now does that characterize more men than women? We'll leave it up to the Mechkar to talk about. I don't want to generalize, okay? But I'm walking around and life feels fine and I'm kind of I'm the ruler of my kingdom, like nothing's in my way. And then one day I wake up and I say, I'm feeling kind of alone and I think I want a partner in this whole process. There's another energy in the world that will be the prototypical Isha, which says, I am in this world for the sake of connection. This world is to be part of a relational context, okay? Yes, are there sometimes in a partner one who is leading and one who is following? That definitely is often the case with all humans, right? You walk into a group and there's the leaders and those who are going with the leader. And that there are those two energies in the world. Now, how they divide up into everybody is very different for different people. But I think that the Torah is sharing a very, very important truth, which is that there's two energies and they complement each other. And that there's going to be a person who's longing more than the other. Fact, okay? It doesn't mean that they don't both want, but there's an energy that's shared, and it's divided up differently between two people. And so then comes Hashem, okay? And in this case, again, I think the Ramban is a beautiful reading, right? The Ramban says that God puts Adam through a process, meaning when Hashem said, Lo tov heyot Adam levado, that was God's pronouncement. But man hadn't yet come to that conclusion. It's like me saying to my kid, go put your coat on, it's cold outside. But it's going to be more powerful when they come to the conclusion when they haven't taken their coat and they're very cold outside and they realize it really is cold outside, right? Meaning, so this is that moment where God says, I know that you're not complete, but man yet didn't know. And so God puts man through what I think is an educational process to say, I want you to feel in your heart and your body that you are not whole, okay? And that is a true moment, right? For some people, it's going to be a very long-lasting moment in their life where this is something that is desperately missing. And so he goes through this process. We'll just get to the end of it. Vayapel Adonai, Pasuk Kaf Aleph 21. Vayapel Adonai Elohim Tardema al ha'adam, vayisham. right? God, Tardema is gonna be like, it's a very intense sleep. It's the sleep that Abraham goes to do the Brit Ben Tarim, okay? Meaning it's a slumber. Now, we can look at this in many ways. Let's finish the pasuk. ויקח אחת מצלותיו ויסגור בשר תחתנה. ויבן אדוני אלוהים את הצלע אשר לקח מן האדם לאישה ויביאה אל האדם. That God, right, famously takes from the tzela, from the rib, and then from there he creates the woman. I'll just say one thing, ויביאה אל האדם. It might be on your sheet, I don't remember, but I saw somewhere that this is kind of like the first vadekim, meaning, right? It is. I don't know how I missed that until now, but like God brings the woman to man, right? He's accompanying that. This is like the marriage ceremony almost. I know we have to finish. I just want to finish with one point because we're going to come back to these sukkim next time. We did not finish this point, which is how do we understand this slumber? Now, there are those who understand it to say it's a divine kindness, meaning it's anesthesia, right? It's the first anesthesia. I don't want him to feel that finding a helpmate is painful, but that it should be where you wake up and you say, I've been looking for you for so long. Where did you come from? This is an amazing enactment of the falling in love process. Okay, now again, does everybody experience that? No, not like that, right? Not everybody experiences it like that. And some people can have very happy marriages, even if they didn't experience it like that. But there is something here that's very powerful. It's also to say that when you wake up to find that helpmate, part of your brain has been turned off. Now that is true on so many levels biologically and hormonally. No, mamash. And I think that the Tardema here is really speaking to that piece, meaning we know you put brains in love and fMRI and they've like on 30% functionality, right, of what's going on there. But there's something very powerful. He wakes up to see her and feels, oh my goodness, it's what I've been looking for. Now that is an experience of falling in love. It's not everyone's experience, but I think that's exactly what the Torah is depicting here. And it's putting him through this process to then be appreciative of the gift he has found. What we still have left to deal with, right? Because I think we're done. What we have left to deal with is why is she coming second? Are we supposed to understand it as a a reflection on, of an inferiority, okay? We have to look very much at the woman. We need to look at the words. What does it mean, vayiven? We're going to look at who she is, what is being created. And we're going to look at the relationship between them as it's presented here, which is both that they view the basar echad, and also that they have a physical relationship below mitzvoshashu. That they don't have any awareness that it has another layer to it. We're gonna start with that next time and then move into the story of sin, which is ultimately going to be obviously where relationships can go wrong. But we're gonna stop here for now. Tune in next week. Okay? Please keep them. I have a question. Is sheet for next week a very tall order? Like, should I put no, we can keep it? Like, yeah. We won't use that on girls. Come on, let's use some of the sources. Okay? Why?